we've got in the book, not just that, we actually have the sign-in logs of his. No, we're not like doxing the other people who were there, but we've got the sign-in logs. He was there 43 times, including the day before. He was there at the range. And so, well, we do dox some of the police officers.
That's crazy that Trump tilted his head a couple millimeters.
Just at the right moment.
And by the way, that 140 yards, that if you're a pretty good marksman with a handgun, you can make that shot. You can go look up YouTube. There are YouTubers who
With a handgun?
Yeah, 100 yards.
I'd never make it.
Yeah, I mean,
You said if you're decent,
it's at the higher
I'm not good.
at the higher end with a handgun. There are people. I've seen Navy SEALs who can make that shot, or or shooting steel, something like that at 100 yards. Yeah, at the higher end with a handgun, you can definitely make.
Who's the T-Mask guy on Instagram? Do you know him?
No,
What's his? I don't know. He's got an account. You can Google search for him. But that dude is super good with a handgun. Watching those videos are incredible. I mean, Keanu Reeves is good with a handgun.
Yeah, and I'm sure any of those guys would be like, yeah, 100 yards, 140 yards, yeah, like we could make that shot. So if you've got a sighted in EOTech, if you're someone who goes to the gun range regularly, if you're someone who knows exactly what you're doing, and by the way, you've got a completely unobstructed view of your target, it's just not a hard shot.
He had his target in his sights perfectly. And then Donald Trump tilted his head.
Well, and so what I say in liberals to respond to this is if you want us to stop bringing God into politics, you have to stop asking him to do the Secret Service's job for them.
Exactly.
That's something that I didn't know until I was there, and they had reconstructed the stage exactly as it was that day for the second Butler rally, is the way that the stands are set up with the stage and where Crooks was, the stands make a V shape leaning in to where Trump was. So where Crooks was, it was as if he had like everything blocked off and the target right there in the middle.
Crazy.
Now it's also interesting.
Well, have you heard of they call it the Pac-Man perimeter? Have you seen this?
Right. Yep. The one area
because there's one area where it kind of divots in. So it's like a circle all the way around the stage, except for the AGR building. So there's this one triangular area which directly bisects the AGR building where Crooks was, and which he utilized, and with the sloped roof, so no law enforcement or anyone else could get up there. Somehow he was able to shoot off a sloped roof, which we saw it. It's not that sloped.
Is it true that the counter snipers were there for the first time that day for Trump? That was reported on
every indication that I mean, not for when he was president, but for one of his post-presidential rallies. Every indication I've seen is that yes, this was the first time counter snipers were there.
You talk about Crooks's body disappearing.
Yes, we talk about all of it. We talk about all of it. That's a very interesting story. The body, and not just the body disappearing. And when I say disappear, it was taken by the FBI.
Yep.
The FBI then released it directly to the family. Did not go back to the Butler coroner to allow him to finish his report. So they have like a preliminary tox screen and a preliminary autopsy for him, but they were not, they did sort of your basic workup, but they were not able to go and do anything further with him.
Cremated it.
So they cremated it. Family cremated the body. The coroner had said he would never be willing to do that. And what's even more potentially suspicious is that the FBI, for the first time in, as far as we know, in FBI history, cleaned the site of the roof. So everyone knows about FBI for, CSI and, crime scene investigation and all this, forensics and the tech and, Dexter and all this stuff. But you never hear about them cleaning the site. That's usually farmed out to some local. And typically, by the way, if you're God forbid, but if there's a crime like that, usually, law enforcement has nothing to do with the cleanup. That's they give you a card and they're like, hey, here's a guy in the area who cleans up biologics, and there you go. I've never in my entire life, and almost a decade in the intel community, I've never heard of the FBI.
I don't want you to give away more stuff in your book, but I'm curious if you wrote about or looked into the story about the guy who was randomly on the rooftop taking pictures.
Man in the gray suit.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so the man in the gray suit, who I have identified through reporting, and just Pennsylvania is a state. Interestingly enough, just the state that that I'm from, that I have really strong networks in. So that was an individual, and Senator Ron Johnson initially was the one who had reported this out. So the man in the gray suit was an ATF. And this is their story on the man in the gray suit. Their story is there was a man who was not on duty at the ATF, but he saw what was going on, that he was in the area close enough to get in, that he drove there on his own recognizance and his own initiative decided to go to the rally, started taking pictures, and he wanted to send the pictures back to the FBI, or to the ATF rather, so that he could conduct facial recognition. Even though Crooks's face was he was shot in the mouth and it came out the back of the head. Right. So I'm not sure if you would have been able to do that. Much of that came out in the autopsy, and he then after Johnson found this all out, when they tried to reach out to the ATF to say why was this guy there, totally stonewalled him.
It was super weird. Wasn't he telling people like text me your images or text a certain number your images? And
right. And so he says that, and was interesting. So he said he was in the Pittsburgh office, but the number he gave was a Philadelphia area code 215, whereas Pittsburgh is 412. And people are saying, why is it a Philly number? It's at the Pittsburgh office. Like the story just didn't match up. Right. It didn't match up at all. And now it's just gone. Total ghost. Totally.
So much doesn't match up about it. Now, one of the things that we call out in the book that I haven't seen elsewhere, it might have been mentioned elsewhere, but it's a sort of the dog that's not barking, that concept where a dog that usually barks just stops barking. Problem. What we notice, all the footage, both video and images, and also the accounts, the eyewitnesses of Thomas Matthew Crooks that day, is he is acting calm, cool, collected, confident about what he is about to do. Now, this is a youngster who is, we understand, planning to kill the most famous man in the history of civilization.
I actually have something to tell you about this. Ooh. So Tim, do you remember when we were at the event in Bucks County last week? And great speech. But was that your first political speech like that for a candidate? Yeah, that was cool to see. Yeah. And so I spoke with Noah Formica of Turning Point Action, who was there that day. And if you look, so there was that TikTok video that we found of Crooks walking by some of the stands. Well, as I was watching that video, I said, wait a minute, that's the Turning Point logo
we talked about
in the background. And so I'm like, I know that guy. So I called him up immediately. I said, Noah, did you talk to the killer? Did you actually talk to Thomas Matthew Crooks beforehand? And he said, I got to think about it. I don't know. Obviously he's, been through a traumatic, he was there at the shooting. Right. So, it was pretty traumatic for him. And he actually called in when we were on live stream that day. And so talking to him later at the rally that you and I were at, Tim, in Newtown in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, he said, look, I went back with my team and we were sort of discussing it. And we realized that we did talk to him. Wow. So he came up. So he said he came up to the table. And I said, was he asking questions? Was he inquiring as to who you were, that were, probing anything? He said, no, it wasn't like that at all. And Joshua, it's like what you said. They said he just seemed arrogant and, kind of had his nose up in the air in a way. And
like he possessed asymmetric information.
Like he had some information that they didn't know what was coming. And they said he seemed really weird. And he said of all the people, and look, there's all sorts of types. There's also, I think there's a girl in anime cosplay in the same video. That's seriously, on the same TikTok with Thomas Matthew Crooks. Not talking to him, but you just see her in the background. And the things you see when watching a Trump rally in Western Pennsylvania. But they said they all noted him as his behavior was just off, that something was very off about him. And again, he had that aloof attitude. And of course, they're asking, hey, do you want to register to vote? Do you want to vote early? This is a big thing. They're just doing their job for Turning Point. And they said that he seemed like he was scoffing at us in a way, as if he had some, like you say, secret knowledge that, obviously we know what happened afterwards, but they all remembered him as being that. And when I showed them the footage, because that's something else where, there's all these images of Crooks as a kid, and the media always does this, by the way. They'll show images of someone as a kid that do not look like what they looked like on that day. So as he grew, he was 20 years old at this time. His bone density was much stronger. He was physically more imposing, and you can see hard jaw, hard features, but at the same time not particularly anxious or worried about anything, as if he knew that his plan would go off without a hitch.
Wow. And there's a description from June 22nd, Air Force veteran Bill Jenkins, that this is from day 2 of the chapter, or of the Bulletproof book. So one of the Keystone Shooting Center classmates who was a class with him that particular day, June 22nd. He says, eventually I got into politics. This is the Air Force veteran Bill Jenkins describing about having a one-on-one conversation with Crooks. He wasn't saying anything. He remained quiet. So I was kind of, waiting to see what this kid would do because he was getting a little tense there. And he never said a word. He just sat there, kind of smiled, looked, and didn't say anything. So I was surprised at that, not knowing what was going to happen in the future. But even then I was kind of like, how come this guy isn't saying anything? Yay or nay? So what that...
Was that the guy? He was at the gun. They were in a gun class together, and he was sort of peppering him with political questions. Talking about Trump, talking about Biden. It was, talking about Kamala. Actually, well, Kamala, keep in mind, wasn't switched out yet. And actually, one of the things that we argue for in the book and detail in quite depth are the 9 days between the failed assassination, which we say is a failed hit on Trump, and the pulling of Joe Biden as the nominee for president.
So what do you guys think is what really happened? Do you believe there was an official capacity behind it?
We lay out three scenarios. So the first scenario is the official story. We have an unstable young man of unclear motivation, totally impossible.
So that's the lone wolf.
Totally and completely. Yes. So we say that is the least likely of all the explanations. And then the second hypothesis, that there is an Iranian plot, and we say, well, this is more so maybe possibly what are in those emails and those group chats that he seems to have been participating in, those
particularly with the IED construction.
Yes. So was he talking to an agent or representative or with individuals hired by Iran? Because there had been some attempts previously and since, it seems, to take out Trump by Iran. So maybe it's certainly, that's more likely than the official story.
But there's no definitive evidence.
That's right. Now, our official hypothesis, and I've got the page earmarked right here.
So the third is inside job.
That's right. We say the numerous United States Secret Service security failures at the rally seem to many Americans too severe and too numerous to be merely coincidental. Crook's presence was known to law enforcement approximately 90 minutes before the shooting.
He flew a drone over it.
Yeah, and if he had wanted to, if he had gone, full Azov battalion, just like, by the way, the second assassin was directly associated with the Azov battalion, which I was able to find I have the ability to, use facial recognition to scour the internet for someone whenever I see their face. Not all the time, but I have a way to do that.
Cerebro.
Kind of
just clear view stuff.
And so when, I'd rather not say, but because I don't want to give away different things. But when Ryan Wesley Roth, I was just looking for his social media, right? His social media profiles, and I was like, this is the picture. Let's look it up. First page is a propaganda video for the Azov battalion.
Wow.
And he's right there, right in Maidan Square of Kiev. I'm like, just pulling out my Alex Jones was right jar.
Yeah.
With so the CIA trained assassination team from Ukraine is directly associated with this guy who had a Kalashnikov outside of Mar-a-Lago and West Palm Beach. Okay, so I'm just calling up Alex like, hey man, you're right again, brother.
And he had a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on his truck.
And the Biden-Harris bumper sticker. But thank God, by the way, that Thomas Matthew Crooks did not go Azov battalion and strap one of those IEDs to that drone. Had he done that, right. And look, Tim, you saw the situation there, and imagine the drone wasn't there. Imagine the Overwatch wasn't there. The Connex easily would have taken Trump out if he had used a kamikaze drone, and he had the ability to do so. He decided not to. Maybe he didn't. He wasn't. Maybe he wasn't. He was concerned with the proficiency of the drone, something like that. I don't know.
It could not detonate,
but it would have worked. It easily would have worked, and so we conducted a little bit of a social experiment, and this was Joshua's idea. So we took we identified 12 independent failures, security failures that day, or failures, or potentially successes.
That's like winning the lottery twice. I think.
See what it is. So, and we said, what are the odds? It's funny you say that, because we said, what are the odds? And we've got the full probability equation here. I know we love math here on Timcast. Okay, what are the odds of all of those independent security failures happening on the same day that, as we say, a trained marksman shows up with intent to kill?
And wait, did you add to that the day before the FBI informed the Secret Service that there was an assassination plot against Donald Trump?
That's in here. Yes.
I think that is in
Add
there,
it to the
actually.
equation.
Yeah, there are a dozen, but we picked the top 12, and the idea is that this is a conservative estimate, and the idea is we picked 12 that if only one of them had not occurred, the security failure had not occurred, crooks would not have been 140 yards away from Trump to be able to take.
So what are
8
the
shots.
odds? Like 1 in a trillion?
Oh boy.
Close.
Probability of all 12 security failures taking place independently from one another, yet simultaneously, together with the presence of a capable marksman with intent to kill, is 1 times 10 minus 27th, or 1 in a septillion, 1 followed by 27 zeros. Let us say that again. The odds of all 12 failures happening on the same day as an armed man with malicious intent happening upon the situation without prior knowledge and assuming these events are independent are at minimum 1 in 1 septillion, and that is being extremely
So
conservative.
it's like-
in our
I say
estimation.
I say the fact that we learned about this was his name Merchant, the Pakistani guy.
Sean. Well, yeah.
Rashawn, Asif Rashawn or whatever.
Asif Rashawn.
The fact that he got arrested the day before, the FBI said they informed Secret Service of a plot to kill Donald Trump, and the Secret Service replied that they would be increasing security. Triple it.
And they refused. So
Right.
that's
Triple those odds.
That's the same as flipping a coin and coming up heads 93 times in a row. And so, but then,
I wish
then
blackjack
so
was like
we took
that.
this a step further, and Joshua did this. And I still remember the night that you texted.
I was
me.
like, bro,
We were
bro,
chatting,
bro,
like, dude,
bro,
you gotta
bro.
see it. So
Like
we
5
took,
times in a row,
So,
all
Tim,
caps.
we took all this and we put it into GPT-4 Omni, and we were like, okay, what does, and that's like the latest iteration, OpenAI, whatever proprietary thing. So like, what does AI say? Not us, right? What does the computer say? So I'll credit to you, Joshua, because this was your idea.
This suggests the 1 in 1 septillion odds. This suggests that the occurrence of all these failures in the presence of the shooter is extraordinarily unlikely by chance alone, raising serious questions about whether these events were truly random.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.